Hello there. This is Evelyn, and I would like to welcome you to the Feminine Firebrand. It is almost 10 o'clock at night, so my voice is cracking and I'm a little bit tired. Just kind of up, cooking a little bit, but I just wanted to just kind of share my thoughts about something that I am seeing on social media that is grating my nerves. I am seeing professing Christian leaders, I guess, who have these ministries and they're teaching on marriage and relationships on these platforms. And I see some of them using the Bible to promote struggle love to their audience. And in most of the cases where I'm seeing this happen, their audience is Black Christians, especially Black women. Now, first, let me explain what struggle love is, because you are going to hear me talk about struggle love. Struggle love is this idea that women, especially Black women, because this message of struggle love is promoted very heavily to Black women. But struggle love is this idea that women should lower their standards and settle for mediocrity and compromise on deal breakers and basically just accept crumbs for the sake of being in a relationship or being married or, finding a man, quote unquote. So that's basically, the idea or the concept of struggle love. Struggle love, I call it struggle love propaganda. It is promoted in movies, especially romantic movies. It's promoted in R&B songs, hip hop songs, rap lyrics. It's promoted in relationship books and videos and relationship counseling, in memes, artwork, and art graphics that you see online. It's promoted just all across the media, especially Black media. So the consequences of struggle love is that women end up with mediocre men. They end up with basic men, men who are below average, men who are subpar, men who are low quality, poor quality, ungodly, immoral, irresponsible, abusive, men who are not on the level of the woman that they're with. So women end up in very bad, dysfunctional, unhealthy, and toxic relationships where they're miserable, unhappy, being mistreated, disrespected, unfulfilled, because they have been taught and trained and conditioned and groomed by cultural messages around them that they are supposed to settle for struggle love. And like I said, this message of struggle love is promoted very heavily to Black American women, to Black women. And what you see sometimes in the Black American community is you see Black women who are with men who are just not on their level and who are holding them back, holding them down, an albatross around their neck. Research shows that Black women tend to marry down. They tend to pair with men who are not on their level. And I think this ties into why Black women have such a low net worth, because their husbands are not as educated, don't make as much money as they do, so on and so forth. In many cases, Black women are settling and lowering the bar so low that they're not even getting married, like they're not even getting marriage proposals. They're just settling for long-term boyfriends. They're settling for situationships, and they're settling for, shacking up and all these, play, fake marriage, wifey, not the wife, but the wifey type of scenarios where they're not getting a marriage proposal. They're having all these children out of wedlock, for these men, but they're not getting a marriage proposal. So it's very strange to me, considering that many Black women, not all, but considering that many Black women are in this predicament or in this situation where they are lowering their standards and they're settling for mediocrity, and they are with subpar men, and they are pairing with men who oftentimes don't even marry them. It's very strange to see leaders in ministry scolding Black women for expecting, I'll give you an example, expecting an engagement ring that costs more than $24.99. Yes, I saw a video where this couple in ministry was kind of scolding, using the Bible and a bunch of spiritual Christianese language, scolding their audience, which is mainly Black Christians, Black women, scolding them for expecting a man to propose to them with an engagement ring that costs more than $24.99, like as if that's materialistic to expect an engagement ring to cost more than $25. It really grated my nerves. First of all, a lot of Black women aren't even getting an engagement ring at all. They're not even getting a marriage proposal. So why is it a problem for some Black women to want their engagement ring to cost more than $24.99? If a man cannot afford an engagement ring that costs more than $25, then there are bigger problems that need to be discussed than the price of an engagement ring. He shouldn't even be dating. He shouldn't even be up in her face. He needs to get himself together and get his finances together, because if you cannot afford a ring that costs more than $25, you can't afford children. You can't afford a house. You can't afford bills. You can't afford to save for retirement. You cannot afford a wife. You cannot afford a family vehicle, and a lot of other expenses that come with getting married. So if a man cannot afford an engagement ring that costs more than $24.99, he cannot afford to get married, and the discussion needs to just end there. You shouldn't be scolding the women for expecting a ring that costs more than $25. You should be admonishing and exhorting the men to be more responsible and to get more educated and to be more fiscally savvy and fiscally responsible with their money. That's because if we need to have a discussion, if we have to have a whole discussion, a whole video about a ring that costs $24.99, then there's a problem with the financial situation of the men. That's what that means. There's not a problem with the women. There's a problem with the men who cannot afford a decent engagement ring. Second of all, who do you think you are? Who does anybody think they are to scold a woman for having her own standard for an engagement ring? Some women don't care for engagement rings. Some don't believe in it. Some will get a tattoo of a ring on their finger. Women have different beliefs and different traditions and different convictions about engagement rings, and that's perfectly fine. It is up to the individual conscience of every woman to decide if she wants an engagement ring, she doesn't want an engagement ring, if a ring that costs $24.99 is acceptable to her, or if she expects an engagement ring to cost more than that. That's up to the woman. There's nothing in the Bible that says a woman is not allowed to expect a man to come with an engagement ring that costs more than $24.99. The Bible doesn't even talk about engagement rings. That is a cultural tradition. So scolding Black Christian women for expecting a man to come more correct than that is totally out of pocket, totally arrogant, and just utterly ridiculous. Like I said, many Black women aren't even getting proposals in the first place. So getting on the women who have a certain standard for an engagement ring is just utterly ridiculous. Okay. This type of marriage advice, relationship advice is a part of the problem. It's a part of the reason why Black women are in dysfunctional relationships and are with men who mistreat them and men who cannot afford to take care of a family because of this kind of bad advice, where they're being encouraged to settle for men who cannot afford something, whether it's a ring or not, that costs more than $25. Some people like myself, kind of look at it like an engagement ring. It's a gesture, the man is showing he's able to provide, or he's making an investment, and putting his best foot forward, making an impression. So that's kind of how I see it. That doesn't make me materialistic. I mean, that's just my perspective on it. Some women don't care how much an engagement ring costs. Some don't care for a ring. But my thing is, if a man is going to expect a woman to give him children, clean up the house behind him, and cook meals and do all this stuff, all these men, online, they post these memes and statuses and preach all these sermons about what they expect women to do and all these things they expect us to bring to the table, but you can't even bring an engagement ring that costs more than $24.99. Boy, bye. Okay, and the same thing goes for these women who are ministry leaders that are giving marriage advice. Girl, bye, because these women sit up here and have all these expectations of Christian wives and of Christian women and what we're supposed to bring to the table in marriage. All these things we're supposed to do. We're supposed to homeschool the kids. We're supposed to, carry children and give these men children and be submissive and clean and cook and do all these things and stroke the male ego and all this type of stuff and praise our husbands and blah, 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 blah. And the list goes on and on. But a man can't even propose to us with a ring that costs more than $25. Girl, bye. There needs to be an exchange, and it needs to make sense. I'm not going to be giving you biblical submission and children and cleaning up and providing you with domestic, the domestic arts and my beauty and my youth and my femininity and, helping you financially and all these type of things. And then you can't even come to me with a ring that costs more than $25. You can make a pivot turn and walk right out my face. So that's how I feel about that. That's my personal conviction, my preference. So, anyway, I just wanted to share my thoughts about that. I was really extremely irritated. Had to do a video about it to get out of my system. But all I'm going to say to all these ministry leaders, stop trying to use the Bible and Christian jargon to push struggle love to Black Christian women, because you are a part of the problem. And then when these women get with men who are broke, that cannot afford a ring that costs more than $25, and these women come to your ministries for financial help, y'all don't help them. Not all, but many times they get turned away if they're not tithing or whatever the case might be, or maybe the ministry doesn't have the funds at this time, or whatever the excuse might be. These women end up in financial dire straits and in financial hardship because they're carrying a lot of the financial burden in these families, and they cannot do it all by themselves because they were encouraged to settle and to lower their standards and to marry a man who could not afford to get married because of your horrible struggle love advice. And then when they come to your ministry or your church for financial help to help feed themselves and their family, or to help pay their utility bill or their rent or whatever the case might be, they don't get any help. Is the church going to provide for them in place of the husband? No, especially not long term. So if you're not going to be providing for them in place of the husband and making up for his financial lack, stop encouraging these women to get with men who are broke. Okay? And to you ladies, I say, my personal opinion, stop listening to ministry leaders who use the Bible and use Christian jargon and churchy cliches to push struggle love and encourage you to settle for mediocrity and to marry men who are not on your level and they cannot afford to get married. All right? Bye.